Our next long lister that achieves the impossible lies in the dense streets of South London. Houses here are so crammed together, you could be forgiven for thinking there was no free space to build anything. Michelle Agundahin has come to find it. This is Slot House, a contortionist of a building squeezed into a tiny 2.8-metre gap. Thanks to a pared-back steel frame and an innovative folded staircase. It's as glamorous as it is clever. It was built by husband and wife team Sandy and Sally Rendel on a tiny scrap of land beside their own house. They challenged themselves to make a viable home out of a footprint the size of a London tube carriage.
You know, it's not this grand piece of architecture or anything like that at all. It's the opposite. It's just a very modest little house, but hopefully proves that you can create something of worth in an incredibly tight little space that has some special quality to it as well.
Yes, it's pleasurable to be in.
Yeah.
Hello.
And that's what they've done. The open-plan ground floor contains a double-height living area and a kitchen. Upstairs, there's a mezzanine study, a bathroom and a bedroom. Given its compactness, you might expect shoebox proportions inside, but
It is so much bigger and lighter than I was expecting it to be. I mean, particularly, I love this sort of double height space. It feels like you've snuck in all the little kind of architectural tricks.
Yeah, I think trying to get a sense of generosity, at least in what is obviously a really tight site. So it's never going to be big, but just moments where you can breathe a little bit more is really what the aim was, I suppose.
the RIBA judges celebrated the way the building materials have been left exposed throughout the house. To make the most of every tiny space, the timber joists are left bare. Nothing has been plasterboarded or skimmed. The real masterstroke, though, was the use of a finely engineered slimline steel frame for the skeleton of the house.
Conventional solution to build, a house would be to build. So the steel frame's really critical in that way. The columns on each side are orientated sideways, so they're only 75 millimetres.
Now that it's in, Sandy and Sally celebrate every elegant inch of their steelwork.
You've made it really rather beautiful on the inside with everything sort of welded together where normally you'd have great big bolts.
Yeah, absolutely. All the connections that are exposed are all fully welded rather than bolted.
You've even made these useful. You put the lights into them.
Well, absolutely. Even the orientation of the steels, just to try and tease out that extra couple of inches.
To minimise the structure, they fixed the staircase onto the steel frame too. In such a small space, every bit of Slot House has to work doubly hard and be twice as practical. Upstairs is the mezzanine study, which hangs over the lounge below. The fit-out materials are all sound-absorbing, timber walls and cork floors to hush the open section of the building. And the ply cladding has a dual purpose, of course.
Well, this is clever. This is what space saving is all about. Sandy and Sally realised that they could just push back the cladding here and made a superb little shelf.
Space-saving ideas extend even to the materials outside. These aren't glazed bricks at the front, but brick slips, a third of the thickness. And they are handcrafted from clay, biscuit-fired, dipped in a pewter and gold glaze, like a marshmallow enrobed in chocolate fondue. Building this breathtakingly crafted house took over 4 years.
Successfully slotting a house into such an extremely narrow plot would be a feather in any architect's cap. But Sandy and Sally's achievement goes further than that. Using a handful of perfectly judged materials, they've created a tiny jewel of a home that's a real pleasure to experience.
Our next long lister forges an international alliance with a country across the North Sea. Damien's travelled to the craggy North West Highlands to see it. This is Kyle House. Rugged walls hewn from local stone, a traditional slate roof, and locally quarried Caithness flagstone floors rub shoulders with an exquisitely crafted Danish oak interior. It's a stylish eco-retreat for rent. The money from it goes into conservation projects to plant trees and enhance ecology. The layout is elegant and simple. Downstairs are the sitting room and the kitchen. Upstairs, there's a luxurious bedroom and a bathroom. But until recently, what stood here was a derelict, dark, almost windowless farmhouse. The architect Gunnar Groves Rains was tasked with dragging it into the 21st century.
Gunnar, it looks incredible just from the outside. I haven't seen many other little sort of barns, cottages with a great big punched square in them.
The first things we looked at is how could we really open up to the views. We were quite careful about where we placed the openings so that as you approach past the building, they're concealed by the natural form of the landscape. So what you see is the original window openings on the upper level, but not these big openings on the lower level.
It may be restrained and respectful of local tradition on the outside, but inside, it's a brand new thing. Full-on Scottish Scandi modern.
I mean, Gunnar, look at this. This is incredible.
The kitchen is wall-to-wall, kiln-dried Danish oak, strengthened and stabilised with delicate butterfly joints. It cost tens of thousands of pounds, and all of it was nearly ruined on the way over from Denmark.
When the oak arrived, actually, at some point along the way, it got transferred from the lorry, which was brought across from Denmark, onto a smaller truck, and it lost its covering. And so by the time it arrived here, it was completely uncovered and getting covered in the rain. So there was a moment of panic there. It was a scary moment. Thankfully, our builder, he's a joiner by trade, and he really understands what needed to happen to the timber to protect it, to get it dried out, to keep it stable, stop it from twisting. So he was really able to salvage almost all of it.
The RIBA judges compared the joinery to fine cabinetry and praised the faultless execution of every element, from the deep timber-lined windows framing the views to the polished, locally quarried Caithness stone in the bathroom. Even the toilet has been artfully concealed.
As part of keeping the space as clean as possible, we were keen to hide away all of the things that make it feel too much like a bathroom or a toilet.
Looks a little bit medieval, sounds a little bit medieval as well, but this is really clever.
The house is a masterclass in attention to detail, from a handcrafted integrated timber staircase to pocket doors which disappear seamlessly into the walls, all of which were made by a local builder, Ewan McRae, with his local team.
We were a little bit out of our comfort zone. Well, we were completely out of our comfort zone at the start, to be honest. A lot of the construction, or a lot of the finishes, we'd never used them before.
But Ewan and his crew can rest easy now. The work at Kyle House is as high-end and as polished as it gets. And this faultlessly crafted piece of Scandi-Scottish fusion is now a worthy new addition in this extraordinary landscape.
What does it mean to restore a building? Is it simply a question of repairing its crumbling fabric? Or is there a duty to move the conversation on? Gunnar and his team of dedicated craftsmen have reimagined what a stone lodge can be, creating a jaw-dropping interior and an incredibly special place to lay your head.